Good afternoon, all the participants. I hope you are having a wonderful session till now, and we hope you will have that continue in the upcoming session. Just let me just give me 1 second to let me share my presentation. I have seen the schedule. The schedule is well prepared. The topic that has been assigned to me is to talk about the importance of the early warning system. And here I will be talking about early warning system. But before I do so, I request you all to kindly, if you can note down some points. I will share the PPT anyhow. If you have any points regarding anywhere in my slide or anywhere during my presentation, please can record it down, and at the end of the session we will have an interactive session where I will try to clear all your doubts. If anybody can confirm if my presentation is visible and audible, then I can move ahead.
Yes, sir, it's visible. Can you make it PPT mode, sir?
So, I will be talking about early warning communication. I will also focus particularly in the last 2 years what we have seen after the occurrence of COVID-19, how the things have changed, how the conventional thinking of early warning system has been changed, and it has been put on test by COVID-19 pandemic scenario. We'll also try to understand what are the components whenever we are talking about early warning system, what are the components that we need to look after. And we will also try to understand with one case studies from flood, not exactly case studies, we will try to understand how flood, particularly flood early warning system work. And then we will talk about some of the key actors and cost-cutting issues. But before we do that, I think it is very important to understand the views on the new variant that has come up. And also now there is a resurgence of cases, both the Omicron and Delta variants. So it is very important that we take it very seriously, because every day we are seeing an increase in the number of cases. Since you are there, I know you are following all the appropriate behavior. But still, I will urge once again that don't take any chances. Do all the respiratory etiquettes that you can, whether it is the physical distancing wherever possible, whether it is the use of mask and regular hand washing, and whenever you are in public, if you are sneezing or something, using handkerchief or tissue paper. If you don't have anything, at least you can flex your elbow so that whenever you are sneezing, you take care of that. And do self-monitoring regularly, and if you think you have any symptoms, don't hide it, report it to the authorities. They will take immediate actions. And also, I think you have already got yourself vaccinated. If you haven't done, please do that, and also encourage your people, your loved one, your dear one. Now even government have initiated between the age of 15 and 18. Now you have to encourage them also to get vaccinated. But before I move on to the main topic, I think one thing that I would like to start with a story, and so that it gives you an idea about what we are doing, and the story of an angel voice. And I knowingly put the picture of this lady, the Mitigation, because we have a lesson to learn from her, and her encouragement, her courage has given us all an idea how an early warning system should be. So this Mitigation, particularly in Minami Sanjipu, Japan, she was employed by the town of this Minami Sanjipu Crisis Management Development to broadcast the disaster advisories and warnings. And during the 2000, you can see in this first picture, you can see my cursor. During the 2011, this was the Minami Sanjipu area where you can see the crowd out here, and it is a coastal area, as you can see here. It is a coastal area built nearby to the coast. And see what she has observed a day earlier, there was a very huge earthquake underground, and she knew that because she was working related to disaster management, she knew something is coming up, the tsunami was like that, right? So she was continuously monitoring that. And during this 2011 earthquake and tsunami, she was here posted, if you can see, this is the office. She was posted here on the first floor of the 3-story crisis management center. and she was continuously broadcasting warning and alerts over the community loudspeaker system at the tsunami at that time about the upcoming tsunami. And during that time, she was so dedicated to her work that even the tsunami, when the tsunami came, she was swept away, over the building, silencing the loudspeaker, killing her and also overwhelming her. It was later that she was hailed in Japanese news media also as a heroine for sacrificing her life and was credited with saving several lives. So you can see the remnant also, if you, sorry, the picture is not here, the remaining of the buildings, then it could have been clear how the devastating, as you can see from this figure, how devastating the tsunami was. So overall it was an act, she sacrificed her life for others, and so it was an act of bravery and heroism, and we should all learn some lesson. And she was such a true hero and selfless humanitarian. This incident overall was later on referred to as an angel voice. So with this positive note, let us come back to the topic that we are going to discuss. I'm definitely sure that you have seen this slide particularly before my presentation. But again, I am showing you this slide. Particularly, I have one important thing that I would like to highlight later. So if you can see here, this 20 years data, this is the data from 1980 to 1999, and this is the data from 2000 to 2019. No doubt, what you will see is that there is an increase in the number of disaster events. See, earlier there were 4,200, around 4,200 disaster events. Now, from 2000 to 2019, more than 7,300 disaster events has been recorded. So which gives us an idea that there has been an increase in the number of disaster incidents, whether that is the number of, we know even not only the number of disaster events, but the intensity, the frequency, and also the ferocity of disasters are increasing. There is no discussion on that. But one important thing that is subject of my concern when I am talking about early warning communication, the second data, you will see the total death data. What you will see is that particularly in this in this 20 years span, the number of deaths were around 1.19 million. And similarly, overall there is an increase in the number of disasters. If you will see the number of deaths, you will see that the number is almost, not exactly, but almost nil. That signifies a lot of things. The first thing is that we have certain things now in place. We call it early warning system. We have our disaster management authority. We have DDMS. We have a multifunctional disaster management act, which has given special powers to different organizations. Because of that, now we have a streamlined disaster management system. Not only in India, throughout the world, disaster has been considered more important among them. I will discuss that later in next things. So with that, what happened because of the proper early warning system, now people are well informed about upcoming disasters, particularly cyclone. You will see that they are releasing warnings around 1 week ahead. Because of that, now people are getting aware before the disaster when they are being rescued, they are being shifted to relief camps, to cyclone shelters. Because of that, there has been an increase in number of disasters. And the second thing, I would like to draw your attention is this figure, which shows India as the third most disaster-prone country in the world. So just after China and USA. So one more interesting thing that you will see overall that out of this top 10 disaster-prone countries in the world, 8 of them lies in Asia, which gives again the idea that how Asia is significantly more disaster prone as compared to other continents. There are several things that we discuss or we can relate to, like the high frequency and impact of disaster in Asia is largely due to the size of the continent also, because the Asia is largest continent, right? And landscape also that represent a very high risk of natural hazards, such as the river basins are there, the floodplains are there, the seismic fault line are there. Additionally, if you see, there are high population density of many of the disaster-prone area of our Asia continent. Because of that, also our continent Asia is also highly disaster-prone. And when we talk about the countries, China and India, they typically dominate the list of countries by impacts in absolute number and largely due to their massive population. Suppose I ask you name country with the largest population. The first two countries that come with the name will be China and India, right? So whenever we talk about number of people affected, not killed, I am talking about affected. Whenever we talk about number of people who are affected by any disaster, China and India, their name dominates the list. And you will be surprised that approximately 70% of the global total people affected by any disaster are from China and India. So that tells us a very important. And in addition to this, I would also like to draw your attention to this figure, which again speaks in itself. Particularly, if you see here, when we see the number of deaths per income group, you will see that particularly low income group, they are the one who are suffering the most, who are having a large number of deaths. So one thing is very clear from here is that disaster does not affect everybody. Disaster disproportionately affects those with the low socio-economic status, including those suffering from poverty as well as minorities and discriminated people. So in many countries, you will see that women lower socio-economic status, which implies an unequal access to information, health, assets, contributes to the reduced ability of women to cope with disaster. And this has also led to gender inequality in death ratio and livelihood losses during natural disaster. So if you see this report, UNDP report from 2013, you will find that women and children, they are around 14 times more likely to die due to a natural disaster as compared to men. Don't you think this is a very important thing which needs to be focused on? I think everybody will need to understand the importance and the gravity of this problem. That how our women, how our small children, they are more vulnerable to disasters. Maybe because of the limited accessibility of the information that has been displayed, or maybe other reasons. Maybe their preparedness is not up to the mark. There are so many factors that can be contributing to that. But this is something we need to look on, or we need to look at very seriously whenever we are talking about leaving no one behind. Whenever we are talking about caring everybody to be more disaster resilient society. So we have to, unless we address these problems, that won't be possible. And this data that you are seeing that women are more prone to disaster is not random. You take the example of 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, where more than 70% of the victims were women. You similarly take the example of 2008 cyclone Hurricanes in Myanmar, which killed twice as many women as aged men, particularly in the age group of 18 to 60. And you take the example of 2005 with Hurricane Katrina. This is not a problem of only India and Asia, right? Just to give you an example, take the example of Hurricane Katrina in US, where it affected predominantly the African American women, illustrating the fact that poorer minorities are more exposed to natural disasters. And for the last few years, what we have seen is that millions of people around the Asia Pacific region, they remain exposed to a high frequency and intensity of natural hazards, like we have discussed, whether it is the cyclone, the typhoon, the other earthquake, or even locust storm that we have last year. And the onset of this COVID-19 pandemic has demonstrated how in an increasing globalized world, such hazards can threaten a systematic global collapse, creating risks that often are interrelated with one triggering another in a cascading of devastating events. Take the example, I will show in my slides also. During COVID-19, we were facing cyclone also, right? During COVID-19, we were facing with floods also. So all that multi-compounded disasters, it is a whole on another level. So we have to take into consideration all these points, and we have to make all our plans accordingly. And you can see this picture, particularly in the area of COVID-19. See how many disasters have occurred in Asia Pacific region. And whenever we are talking about this whole this concept of the sustainable development, we talked about that. We talked about how our countries also symmetry. So this whole new disaster health climate nexus, it must be addressed in order to achieve the sustainable development goals. So over the past 2 decades, like I said, countries in Asia and Pacific have made significant progress in achieving sustainable development goals. But still, I think more are still ill prepared for the complex overlapping crisis. Because now we understood that it is not disaster doesn't come alone. Sometimes they come in cascading effect, and sometimes they compound each other effects. So that type of we have to prepare for such overlapping crisis also. And this here you can see, like just to give you an example, we have been during this COVID-19 we have been exposed by cyclone, we have been exposed by fires, there is a drought condition going on, there is floods, locust flood, everything has been there. And one important issue is that when this COVID-19 pandemic rage was going on, the region, particularly our Asia and Asia Pacific region, they continue to experience other natural hazards, many of which were hydrometeorological. Like the tropical cyclone hit many countries across the region. Major floods events were reported in China, in Japan, in Pakistan, in Iran, and now we call it Islamic Republic of Iran. Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, everywhere, Philippines, there were floods, there were typhoons. Just to give you an example, just to present you, this were all the number of, you can see the list of disasters, major disasters, that occurred during the COVID-19 period, which compounded the old disasters, right? So the lockdown, now there might be something that we cannot imagine. Just imagine during that time, there were lockdown restrictions, right? The lockdown were there, travel restrictions were there, and other containment measures that were imposed as a response to COVID-19 that were implemented there. And because of this disaster occurrence, all that restriction, all that lockdown that were implemented, that were interrupted. And the measures that were taken for prevention, response, and recovery for hazards that were disturbed. And similarly, the other way around also, if you see, when this because there was lockdown, there were travel restrictions, and when this disaster occurred, the response was not up to the mark. Why? Because there were travel restrictions that were implemented. So people, sometimes self-help groups, volunteers, they were not able to reach that places immediately. So because both that COVID-19 was affecting the measures taken to take care of the disaster hazards, and similarly the hazards were also affecting the restrictions that were imposed to prevent the COVID-19 infection. So it was both way around. And just to give you an example, that in August 2020, the city of Karachi in Pakistan was hit by a record high flood, and during that time, more than close to 1.6 million people were affected. In the Philippines, during that time, Typhoon Goni made landfall in November, and very importantly that when this Typhoon Goni made landfall, it affected one of the main COVID-19 laboratories. So because of that, now the people were unable to do COVID testing. That has resulted in the spread of more COVID-19 in the Philippines. Let me just give you some example from India also. In May 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic was rapidly spreading in India and in all over Asia. And particularly in that time in India and Bangladesh, we had that cyclone Amphan, I think you remember, right? So it was one of the strongest recorded cyclone that hit densely populated coastal areas and lead to extensive flooding. In West Bengal, what happened is that it damaged more than 560 primary health centers, right? More than 169 block primary health centers, and in total more than 5,000 community sub-centers. So there the COVID-19 testing and other things were going on. So that has affected the COVID-19 action that government was taking. So you can see how one disaster has affected the response that was being carried out during COVID-19. Similarly, during that time in Assam also, due to that heavy monsoon, there was flood in that area. And in Assam, due to that flood, the people out there who were residing there, they were moved to some relief camp so that they could be safe from flood. And because so many people were gathering in relief camp, and during that time, more than 1,200 COVID cases were reported in one day, and that was the highest single day in India during that time. So how did that happen? Because people were forced to by nature that they have to come to leave. They didn't want to go there naturally, but because of the flooding whole area, they were forced to go there because of that COVID-19 cases increases further. And during that time, one more important thing is that whatever small remaining, some areas were little irrigated, the crops that were left in some irrigated areas, that were also, the farmers, they were not able to collect that, their harvest, their crops from the field. Why? Because COVID-19 restrictions were there. So people were not able to harvest the crops, remaining crops also. So that has also resulted in a financial burden on the farmers. So this gives us an idea like how we should have a multi-hazard approach. The whole concept of giving you this idea was to give you an idea that now it's time to have a multi-hazard approach rather than a single hazard. And this whole concept of this multi-hazard approach, it is not that only we are talking about. The importance of this early warning system and multi-hazard early warning approach, both for global to local climate change actions and disaster risk reduction strategies, it has been increasingly recognized during the last 50 years. And during this time, I think yesterday you have a detailed session about the Sendai framework, the sustainable development goal, what are the goal targets. I won't discuss in that in detail because I hope you have already understood that. But here, what I want to draw your attention to is that whether it is the climate agreement COP21, whether it is the sustainable development goals, particularly when you talk about sustainable development goal, in goal number 13, where we talk about climate action, it has been emphasized to work on the early warning, multi-hazard early warning system, And in SFTR, particularly, it has been given when you talk about the 7 targets in SFTR, out of which the 7 targets of 4 are the reducing oriented and 3 are the increasing oriented. In that increasing oriented last point, we will see it has been clearly mentioned that we have to work in increasing the availability and accessibility to multi-hazard early warning system and disaster risk information and assessment. So the importance has been recognized everywhere. Even our Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi in 2006 has laid down the PM 10-point agenda, which are basically 10-point mantras to enhance our country disaster risk reduction and resilience. Here also he has mentioned how we should, particularly the point number, I think point number 5, you will see where he talked about leveraging the use of science and technology in disaster, in enhancing our disaster resilience. So it has been focused everywhere. So this is where the importance of early warning system, the information about the need for disaster risk reduction and resilience come out. Because what are early warning system are? Early warning strategies are a set of measures. They are taken to increase the resilience. And if we correctly implement it based on the need of the area, you will see that early warning system can help to reduce the losses of life and property, and also it will minimize the environmental damage. Because when we are talking about sustainable development, we cannot neglect our environment, right? So to minimize the environmental damage is also one of the important. So in short, if you ask me why do we need a early warning system, basically there are 2 points that we need to focus. The first one is definitely to safeguard the life of the people, because there is nothing more important than safeguarding the life of the people, the life of the important citizen that we have in our country. And the second important point is to safeguard the infrastructure, our assets, whether that is the investment in private sector, our hospitals, our roads, railways, pipelines, network, all that infrastructure, bridges, all that, safeguarding all that is very important. Why? Because when we safeguard our infrastructure, we save our government from a huge burden of reconstruction and development. Because a dollar spent in early warning is, later on it's like $10 saved in reconstruction and development. Because reconstruction costs a lot, and if the government has to do a huge reconstruction and recovery, our country will be pushed back behind 4 to 5 years. So that's why it is very important to understand and very important to realize the necessity and the importance of safeguarding our infrastructure. And of course, to safeguard the environment is also one of the priorities, but two main priorities is safeguarding the life and safeguarding the infrastructure and our resources that we have in our country. Similarly, if you just to give you an example of how effective early warning system is, there are actually many examples. One who I have already shared in the initial. Let me just give you one more example to show how an effective early warning system. That warning was an example of how one person. We take the example of Thapa where the decision of at the railway station master, I think you remember that, where he took the decision of moving that train even before time has saved thousands of people. Such type of early action, right? That is very important. We take the example of this effective early warning system. In the 1977 cyclone in Andhra Pradesh in India, it killed more than 10,000 people. While a similar storm in the same area 13 years later, it killed around about 910 people. This drastic difference, from 10,000 to 900, this drastic difference was due to the fact that a new early warning system was connected with the radio station to alert the people in low-lying area in that area. So because of that, now the people were having that early warning. The people were informed beforehand that a cyclone is coming with this intensity and is likely to make landfall in this date and this area. So people out there, they were really moved to rather more safe areas, more cyclone centers. Because of that, they were less number of casualties. Now we have a proactive approach, which is very important. And particularly, when we talk about that, we have to understand, particularly after the Bhuj earthquake also, this whole concept of this, the disaster management was put in focus. Similarly, you see this picture, the Indian Ocean tsunami disaster that struck, and the scale of this tragedy that has changed the thinking around the disaster. And after that disaster, the importance of this managing disasters. I think you have seen this trial, the three circles. You have seen this picture, the intersection yesterday. But this concept, the importance of this was highlighted. The importance of managing disasters even before the disaster strikes, by increasing our understanding of disaster risk and reducing our exposure to this risk was particularly brought into light by a Bhuj earthquake, by Indian Ocean tsunami. And then we have this whole enhanced approach. In enhanced approach, what basically we have in fact, particularly for at least for the weather-related hazards, we have some information ahead of the upcoming disaster event, and that information can be interpreted and used to prepare the emergency operation better. So, in the early warning, early action approach, we make full use of the climate information that we have, and we act in a way that prepare us much better as a whole, but also with a more strategic approach to disaster response. As you can see now, earlier approach what we had disasters, then we had response, right? If you remember the earlier slide, but now we have early warning. Based on that early warning, there is some early response. Suppose for flood example, if there are early warning that there will be flood, people can go to an elevated area, as you can see in this picture, and after that disaster event will occur. Based on that, later on, see if you are there in the elevated area, the response team can come and they can rescue you safely. So this is the all enhanced approach where we have early warning, and based on that we have early action. So when we talk about this early warning and communications and early warning system, it is not a one component system. As the definition highlights, an early warning system is much more than just hazard forecasting in combination with network for transmitting the warning to the public. For an effective early warning system to be effective, the inclusion and interaction between 4 key elements is very, very vital. What are the 4 key elements? The risk knowledge, the monitoring and warning services, dissemination and communication, and response capacity. out of this, the combination of this four element only makes a complete early warning system. Let us just try to make this component very shortly, in a very short manner. Suppose the first component is risk knowledge. I think yesterday we had the basic knowledge of what is disaster risk, what are hazards, what are vulnerabilities. So I assume that you have that information. So now, like yesterday, I think you have discussed that risk arises from combination of hazards and vulnerabilities at a particular location. For this reason, risk knowledge is a very key component to successful early warning system. Basically, what it means is that suppose in this picture, if you see our India, particularly for tsunami, you have to understand what the vulnerability or the risk of tsunami that you are facing. Then you have to understand what are the risks that are prevailing there. And until and unless you are aware of the risks that are prevailing there, how can you take some preparedness steps? How can you take some actions beforehand until unless you know what are the risks that are prevailing there in your area? And that risk knowledge can be in any ways. It can from your ancestors that you are learning. It can be from your own experience that you have faced in your particular area. It can be from reading materials or you have learned from somewhere. But you should have the basic knowledge of risk. And when we talk about risk, we should also understand what are the sensitivity to a hazard, what are the level of exposure that are there, what are the pathway of exposure, what are the hazards, what are the vulnerabilities. When you have all that information, then you can assess what are the risks that are prevailing in your area. Then the second component is monitoring and warning services. This monitoring and warning services are what more often comes to our mind when we talk about early warning system. So this is an infrastructure that delivers the forecasting and warning. So monitoring is the act of collecting information along with the sets of proxy variables that are related to risk. Let me give you an example. Suppose you want to measure the flood, or suppose you want to measure the drought. Then what is the parameter that you will measure? Then you will measure rainfall, right? So that is what is called monitoring. You are measuring rainfall, and based on that you will make predictions about flood and drought. If it is extensively high rainfall, then there are possibilities of flood. Then you will act accordingly. If there is a very high shortage of rainfall, minimum rainfall, then the probability of drought. Similarly, suppose you want to understand the earthquake, or you want to correlate with earthquake, then what are the parameters? Then you want to measure rainfall, right? Then you will measure the speed waves. So such thing, based on what you want to understand, what are the risks that you are looking for, you will measure some parameters, and that will be done in monitoring and warning services. And this can be done through direct and indirect observations, as you can see here. Like this, with the advancement of science and technology, now we have satellite communications, we have satellite imagery, we have a remote sensing and GIS system that is in place. It has been gaining importance, and particularly when we talk about disaster management field, I think remote sensing and GIS has done a tremendous job. Now we have some. If you see some examples or during particularly flood situation, when you have that report like this much area will be inundated by flood. Beforehand, there are predictions how because our advancement in modeling, our advancement in data collections, we are getting a large area information just within just in a click away. So just by using the satellite data, we can have all that information, and that can be very vital for life saving. Apart from that, we also have some radars, Doppler radar. I hope you have heard of that. Even Doppler radars like ILDM also have that. So all that also are very, very important to monitor whether that is the rainfall or other thing. That is very, very important. Apart from that, even point-based, like you can see in this third picture, the point-based, the ground point-based data collection are also very important. Particularly when you talk about the earthquake measurement, you have to take measurement from each point, right? So that we can measure the S-wave, the P-wave. Or we talk about flood monitoring in river. this our CWC, they have set up some monitoring stations. From there each point, from point-based recording is recorded. Or you talk about water collection, water testing. There also point. Such type of point-based is very very important. Such type of. And after collecting all these data, one more very important task that is there is the interpretation of that data. Because collecting data is one part and getting some meaningful information from that data is other part. And to do that, particularly when you are talking about saving life, you need to have that specialization. You need to be that expert who can make that data understand, who can understand that data very well, and who can even make use of that data to come up with even small detailing from that data. So we need to have an expert who understand all those data and who can use those data to come up with a trend line so that some predictions, some forecasting can be done. And nowadays, even our social media, our mobile technology also are doing a very very important part. Where there are few examples where now people are collecting data from like the crowdsourcing that we talked about. How crowdsourcing is playing a very important role. There are apps where it can play a very important role. Suppose when you are going through some area, suppose hilly area, and if you have seen that there is a chances or even some suppose landslides, the soil or the stones are falling from a particular area. So what you can do is you can take picture, you can send it to the concerned organization. There are apps that are coming up. Suppose one example is the iSmart app that has been developed. So such type of things are coming up. Now even in India, there are some UN projects that are going on in this. So things are changing. Even now crowdsourcing is also becoming a reality. Not only our traditional infrastructure that government set up, they are going to be monitoring and monitoring. Now every citizen is going to be monitoring and monitoring services. So now let us assume that we have done our risk analysis on a particular area. We have done the second component, that is monitoring and monitoring services. Now suppose the expert with the use of the data that was collected, he has predicted some warning. Now he has some warning that needs to be disseminated to the people, right? And that dissemination of information to the people, it needs to be immediate and that needs to be disseminated, and that can be disseminated in a number of ways. I have just listed out some of the ways, whether that is the telephonic conversation or telefax, this environment, wireless, the internet, website, even our radio and television network, the mobile phones, the SMS, the print media, the warning advices that are put in websites, speaker, silence, everything. There you can use any tool that is available to you, so that information reaches to the community that is in most danger. And one more important is the community radio or the ham radio. They can also play a significant role in disaster management through promoting preparedness, warning and rehabilitation program, and particularly after the disaster. But because community radio sometimes they have the accessibility of the local language. Because when you talk about addressing the people who are living in remote areas, sometimes our language would be a barrier. Suppose people, there might be some examples, I think in South also, I think you have experienced yourself. Sometimes people have barrier, they don't understand English. So how to make them understand what warning that is listening, right? We should do our part to make them understand the warning that are there. So it's not that we cannot always sit and assume that they will come to us. When we want to save their life, it is not always top to down bottom. Sometimes it is bottom to up. Sometimes we also have to go to them. We also have to reach to them. And how can we do that? We can also enhance our dissemination of information in their own vernacular language, in their own language. That would be more beneficial to them. That needs to be undertaken, right? And one more thing that I would like to draw your attention here is that in most of the cases, it has been observed that the inappropriate communication and dissemination of warning it has resulted in inappropriate response. And historically, if you see that most of the times, failure of early warning system does not occur due to the failure in infrastructure. It was due to the miscommunication. That's why how the warning is disseminated. Because of the miscommunication, most of the time, not only in India, abroad also it's been that most of the failure of early warning system is due to the miscommunication. That's why the third component about communication and dissemination is very, very important. And in disaster situations, particularly cyclone, you will see that our main, suppose our mobile network or other means of communications are broke down because of the damage to suppose the infrastructure, the network, the towers, that are also damaged sometimes. So because of that, the communications are disturbed. And in such time, that's why I say always that we need to have a backup system. And moreover, when we have disaster in particular area, people from all around the world, like wherever their relatives are there, they try to get in touch with their people out there who are there, in affected areas. So during that time, more people are trying to get connected. And because of that, there might be sometimes congestions, and because of that, the network issues are there. You cannot contact them because of the congestions and network breakage. In such time, we need to have an alternative solution beforehand, like ham radio, the amateur radio. I think you have heard of that. That can be a very important tool for our preparedness when we are talking about making our communication resilient. And in my suggestions, I think every hospital needs to have one or two who can at least operate ham radio in times of disaster, so that medical or other critical infrastructure, they are in constant touch outside when our normal means of communication are not in place. And one more important, like I said, I think just before this slide, what I said is that most of the time early warning system fails because of the miscommunication, right? So that's why we need to focus on communication part. And when we talk about communication, and when in disaster situation what happens, the people are already mentally stressed, right? And the time is very limited because sometimes all disasters don't have 2 to 3 days lead in cyclone. Suppose fast flood, there you might hardly have 1 or 2 hours if the point of the upstream where that has been reported and where your home is or where you are situated, that distance is very short. You might have only 1 or 2 hours time period, and during that time period you have to move to same place. Apart from that, if you have some livestock or cattle or anything, you have to make them free. You have to take that action also. You have to aware other people also. If you can take some your important belongings, you have to do that. All is very, very important. So the timing is very important. So that's why in disaster situation, the warning that is disseminated, it should be very short, it should be very clear, and it should be very precise. So that whoever is consuming that data, they know immediately what to do, how to do, where to go. So all this information, like who is it about, who to contact, what is going to happen, when will it take place, where will it take place, and where to go, what is the relief available in various, suppose, relief camp, who is the person who to contact. In such type of small contact, will be small information is there in early warning or from the community itself also, then that will be very beneficial for the people to take immediate action. And the last component of the early warning system, like that I talked about, is the response capacity. And we have to understand that to succeed in prompting and response to warning, it is very vital that the endangered community for whom we are conducting the response, they should have that trust in early warning system. Until unless they have that trust, because if they don't have trust in response system, then the whole actions won't come out fruitfully. So that's why they need to have trust in that, and that can be built with regular enhancement by public and institutional preparedness, or by giving them more ideas about how to respond to them. That can be done through more drills or trainings, or giving out handouts, or informing them, even the local people, through various activities, for the nukkad natak, or the leaflets, or the printouts, the other thing, anything that can be done to enhance their knowledge about how response are there in time when there are no disaster, in preparedness time, then that will be very beneficial. So we have to do our response, particular response activity, because at our present knowledge of science and technology, we cannot stop disaster, right? So this is the reality. What we can do is we can prepare ourselves at the best of our capabilities so that we can face that disaster and we can reduce the losses of life, we can reduce the losses of infrastructure, but we cannot stop that. So that's why also we need to have a very good response capacity, and we need to continuously enhance our response capacity through regular mock drills. And community engagement, I think, is very important in that, because until unless we engage the community, we give them some powers, we have them in planning, we have them in response, we have them representative in preparedness, it is not going to be that easy. So their engagement, not only physically, wholeheartedly, is very important. That's why the whole concept of community-based value warning system are coming up, and it has been excellent in some of the cases, particularly if you see Philippines in those areas. It has been excellent job when we talk about community-based value warning system. Now one more important component that I would like to draw your attention is consistency in collaboration. We have understood that there are 4 components, right? What were they? Risk knowledge, monitoring and warning services, dissemination, and response capacity. And the important thing is that each component is important in its own way, but we need to have some coordination and collaboration among all the 4 components. And it is very essential to ensure that the existence of cooperation may prove to be effective condition for coordination. So that's why there is a very famous saying that says that cooperation without coordination has no fruits, and coordination without cooperation has no fruits. I think you have heard this small story, the elephant, right? 6 blind men who were asked to determine what is an elephant looks like by feeling different part of the elephant body. And the king has sent them, right? And the blind man who feel a leg, who touch the leg of elephant, he says that elephant is like a deer. The other one who feel its tail says that elephant is like a dog. The one who is touching his ears, is saying it's like a fan, right? Who is touching his stomach, it's saying like it's a wall. So basically, all of you, when you think example wise, all of them were right, but none of them gave a clear picture of what elephant is look like, right? So the reason everyone is stating truth is that because everyone have their different perspective. That's why I say sometimes the government may have different perspective, the community may have different perspective, and none of them, I am saying, is wrong. But until unless you combine all the perspective of the people, you take everyone on board, you have coordination, you have collaboration, you make mutually understood everybody, then only you can have a complete picture of it. Similarly, when we talk about risk, it sounds like a small component, but in each component there are a number of stakeholders that are engaged, there are a number of agencies of government, NGOs that are engaged in each component of our development system. Until unless we have coordination and collaboration among all the people, then only we can have an effective development system. And like there's a famous saying, alone we can do so little, and together we can do so much. I think this speaks a lot in this. So in gist of all the 4 components, we can say that effective end-to-end and people-centered early warning system, it includes 4 interrelated key elements. The disaster risk knowledge based on the systematic collection of data and disaster assessment that needs to be carried out. The second component was determination, monitoring, analysis, and forecasting of the hazards and possible consequences that can occur in the area. The third component is whatever ID warning is dissemination and communication, and that needs to be from a particular source. Now the fake news are there. There are so many possibilities of the news getting taken. So that's why dissemination and communication by an official source, authentic, very authentic, timely, accurate, and also actionable one. Like I said, it should be actionable. and associated with information on likelihood and impacts also. And the fourth one is the preparedness at all levels to respond to the warning received. So these four interconnected components needs to be coordinated within and across sectors and multi-hazard level, multi-level for the system to work efficiently. And then only we can have a good idea of the system. And we have to remember that the failure in any one of the components or lack of coordination across them then could lead to the failure of the whole system. That's why each component is very, very important. So let us take an example of effective early warning system. So effective flood early warning system. So like I said, early warning system has to be understood as the assemble of different components of inform communities in a timely manner about the disaster that are coming. For example, take this flood early warning system. Using different input data, as you can see, it is using the satellite imagery, it is using the rain data, precipitation monitoring for flood model calculation. To elaborately forecast and flood hazard map, and that information, whatever has been generated, these maps are used to classify the imminent flood threats into four major, for a journal like the color codes that we use: green, yellow, orange, red, right? And then that warning is disseminated further to the people who are looking for that warning, so that immediate actions can be taken. So with this animation, what I want to show is how an effective flood early warning system works. Suppose whenever there is a rainfall and water level rises, so this gentleman out here, he is suppose the technician who receives that data. Suppose there is continuous rainfall, and that rainfall is recorded from this station. That station is collecting data. It is transmitted to this gentleman who is the technical receiver. And now he interprets that data and he is sending that data. See, he is disseminating that data to the local people. He translates the information that is collected are all numbers, right? The information he will make that message simple, and he will send that message towards the to the community. You can see the community out there. And now this community who has received the volunteers of the flood early warning system, or the government official, whoever is there, that information, now they have received it from the technician. Now they will understand that data and they will take immediate action, and they will try to move the volunteer, the people, when elevated area, the community, they will try to move the community to an elevated area. This is the whole concept of effective flood early warning system. So when you talk about early warning system in India, the Central Water Commission, they are under the Ministry of Jal Shakti. They are the nodal agencies who has been given this responsibility of flood monitoring and giving early warning to flood. But there has been an expansion of flood forecasting network by CWC, where in 90s they were having just one, to now they are having more than 300 flood monitoring stations, and particularly you will see what I want to draw your attention here is that just for information that CWC, they release every 5 days forecasting, 5 days warning regarding flood in their websites. So you can go check 5-day advisory is there. That is based on we call it MIT11, that is rainfall based mathematical modeling. Apart from that, they also give time to time information about what are the forecasting data, what are the chances of flooding that are occurring. But one important and one very user-friendly initiative that I would like to draw your attention is that in 2008 there was a collaboration of CWC people, and during that time, in that where both are working together to give the information to the people. Under this agreement, what the center, our CWC, shared the historical and real-time, discharge data that they have their monitoring station, that the data that has been collected, and also the historical data that has been shared with with the Google. And what Google does is that Google, they deploy its technical expertise in the field of whether that is artificial intelligence, the machine learning, the geospatial mapping and analysis of hydrological observation data. They do all that using the data from CWC to generate a location-specific recommendation. Let me just give you an example. So this is in short that I was talking about. The CWC, the gauge measurement and forecast they give it to Google, and Google, with the help of the satellite imagery, they generate initially with Google TAM generation. TAM is nothing, digital elevation model. So digitally they have that data, what will be there, what will be height of, of that area. So based on that, now they use this this model, hydraulic model, and based on this model, just see the graphical images, you will just understand how they do. Based on this model, now they give out predictions. Like this superimposed area one after another, and they put it in some model. Based on this model, they get some outputs. Like we can see in this picture also, they are getting some outputs, right? And that only see all that monitoring stations of CWC, they are collecting their data, and finally they are generating some model, like this model. And based on this model, the CWC, they like Google, they have that information like which area will be inundated up to which step. All that is available in Google. You can just type and you can get that information directly, which is very user friendly, directly. So prior, before the incident occurrence of incidents, they get all the information that can be transmitted to the public. Like this, just if you search any particular area, search, you will get information like this. As you can see, what is the situation, what depth, even the depth, that is what is the depth of water at your location, that information will be shared. Particularly if you are in a flooded area in that situation, then that will be more informative. See, and all that information is there, even for tsunami, even for flood, all that information are there. And not only that, Google also provides this information to government of India, and they take necessary actions based on the information provided. And that information is also transmitted to NGOs also. So in short, we can say that there are various things that still needs to be taken, and there are a range of overarching issues that should be taken into account when we are designing and maintaining the early warning system. The first thing that we need to consider is that whenever we are talking about the effective early warning system, is the effective governance and institutional arrangement. Because well-developed government and institutional arrangement, they support the successful development and sustainability of a very sound early warning system. And they are the foundation upon which the previously outlined the four elements that we discussed of the early warning are built. They are the foundation upon which they are strengthened and maintained. So that's why we say good governance is encouraged by robust, local and the legal and the regulatory framework. That's why effective governance arrangements should encourage the local decision making also, participations which are supported by broader administrative and all that institution. And one more very important thing that we need to talk whenever we are talking about effective governance is that both the vertical and horizontal component and coordination between early warning stakeholders should also be established. The second component is that the multi-hazard approach, like I discussed earlier also. Wherever possible, every warning system, every early warning system should link, all hazard-based system, basically multi-hazard-based system. Because multi-hazard early warning system will also be, activated more often than a single hazard system. So, because in one particular area, if you have early warning system set up for flood, for suppose cyclone, for different hazard, different early warning system. But rather, if we can have that technology and if you can invest in one early warning system very nicely, which can give us information about all the hazards, I think that will be much beneficial, and that will be much cost effective, and that will be much better. And third one is the involvement of the local community. People-centered early warning system, they rely on the direct participation of those who are most likely to be exposed to hazards. That's why we say that without the involvement of local authority, without the involvement of the community who are at risk, you cannot have a very effective early warning system. And the intervention and response that we are taking towards hazards, events, and the prevention, they are likely to be inadequate. So in this case, that's why we say a local bottom-up approach to early warning with the active participation of the local community, which enables a multi-dimensional response to problems is in need of it. And in this way, one more thing will be there, that the local communities, the civic group, the traditional structure, they can also contribute to reduce the vulnerability and to strengthen the local community. Because you would agree with me that the local people, the local experience that they have, the traditional knowledge that people have, this is very, very important. Because traditionally also our ancestors, they were dealing with disasters and they have their own way of doing that. So that knowledge is sometimes also very important, and we shouldn't get, we shouldn't forget that. So clearly that can also be incorporated whenever we are taking a multi-hazard approach. And whenever that can be only possible when we engage the community. So their engagement is very, very important. And the last important point, which I think is one of the most important, is the gender perspective and cultural diversity. Because in developing early warning system, it is very essential to recognize that different people have different vulnerabilities according to the culture, according to the gender, or other characteristics that influence their capacity to affect, that can effectively prepare for disasters or prevent disaster or respond to disaster. And like I earlier said, women and men often play different role in the society and have different access to information in disaster situations. So hence they are differently, prone to disaster. So in addition, what about our elderly people? What about our small children who are not able to make immediate decisions? And what about the disabled people? What about the socio-economic disadvantaged people who are more vulnerable? We have to consider everybody. That's why I say we have to consider the gender perspective. We have to consider the cultural. Culturally also we have to respect the people. And this information, institutional arrangement and one communication system, they should be tailored to meet the need of each group in every vulnerable community. And it is not that this can be done by single person or single organization or single entity. There are several key players who needs to play a very important role and who have a significant role to play for an effective early warning system, for an effective early warning system. Needless, the top one I have known to the community at the number one, because in my perspective their engagement is very, very important. Community, particularly those most vulnerable, they are the fundamental people-centered early warning system, and they should be actively involved in all aspects of establishing and operating, of early warning system. They need to be aware of the hazards and potential impacts to which they are exposed. They need to be able to take action to witness the threat of losses of damage, and they need to have some power, some authority, some resource, both financially and both humanitarian resource, so that they can do that on their own end. So that's why their engagement is very, very important. The local government, needless to say, like community and individuals, the local government are also at the center of effective early warning system. They should have their, they should be empowered by national government, having considerable knowledge of the health. So they know their problem much better than the outside people. So they must understand the advice, inform, receive from the upper side that needs to be disseminated immediately to the community. And even they should have some powers so that they can also act upon at certain level. Central government, no doubt, central government has a role to play, and they are responsible for the high-level policies and frameworks that facilitate early warning and for the technical system that predict and issue the national hazard warning. And the regional institutions also play a very important and significant role in providing the specialized knowledge and advice which support national efforts to develop and sustain the early warning capacity. One thing I would like to say that it is always that, not always that we need to understand or we need to learn lessons from our own mistakes. Sometimes we can learn lessons from other people's mistakes. That's why we need to understand, we need to carry out case studies, right? So we can have case studies from other countries. This is why these international bodies that I have mentioned, they can play a significant role. They can bring out important case studies from other countries. They can exchange data and knowledge from other countries. That can be implemented in our age, right? The NGOs also, they play a very significant role, particularly in raising awareness among individuals, in particularly in communities. The public sector also have a diverse role to play, either by including developing the ILDM capabilities in their own organization, or also they can invest or they can generate awareness in other parts. The science and academic community, I think this is such a community where they have a role to play in all the sectors. In the science and academic community, particularly if anybody are from research scholars or from academic background, they can provide specialized scientific and technical inputs to assist the government and community in developing early work. And to conclude, a few of the key takeaways that I would like to draw your attention is that when I'm talking about this COVID-19, the concentrated impact due to a single disaster type in some countries provide an opportunity for more focused approach on disaster extraction. Particularly, however, this COVID-19 has demonstrated as the need for a systematic multi-hazard approach in an increasingly globalized and interconnected world. So that's why I see there is a requirement for strengthening the disaster risk governance to manage the disaster risk, and our vision should be very clear, and we should have that competence, we should have that plan, guidance, and we should also have the funding also. So without funding, we cannot do anything. And we should also have this coordination across sectors and in a manner which takes accounts of the increasing systematic nature of the disaster risk. And one more thing that is important is the public and private investment in disaster risk prevention and reduction in the cause, and that can be done through structural or structural or non-structural measures that needs to be stepped up to create disaster resilient society that we talked about. And we also need to focus on sharing our knowledge and information in local language also to reach to the community residing in the most remote areas with limited understanding of Hindi and English language. And one more thing is the technical innovation, broadcasting techniques and system for use in emergency communication needs to be continuously improvised. So I would like to end my presentation with this message that in this world, in today's world particularly, you will see that you don't have to be a disaster expert, expert to make a difference. It is not only the responsibility of disaster professionals or people who are working in disaster management. It's not only their duty to make our country disaster resilient, but I will say that whether you are a scientist, whether you are a politician, or even if you are in concerned citizen, you might be children, women, gender, irrespective of all that, we all can do our part, we all can make our contributions by getting ourselves better, understanding our risk, making steps, all the steps that are, that we can take to enhance our resilience. And then only I think the dream that we see of making our country and disaster resilient, having our society who is resilient to disaster, then only that is achievable. So I will end my presentation saying that disaster risk reduction is key to sustainable development and climate change adaptation, and we all have a very important part to play in that. So with that, I will end my presentation and back to the host, which you can hear me. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, sir.